Now we're going to look at the principle of timing. Timing is a difficult one because several of the other animation principles that we've talked about are dependent on timing. So it's not, you can't really isolate timing. For example, follow through. If a layer was moving slowly, you wouldn't expect a lot of overshoot and then settling back to its target stopping point. If something's moving slowly, it's much easier for it to stop at its target destination. But if something's whipping onto the screen really fast, then you would expect it to overshoot and settle back. Same kind of thing with anticipation. It'd be odd to see a lot of anticipation for something just to move slowly off the screen. But if something's going to shoot off the screen very quickly, you would expect a big wind-up, right? A lot of anticipation in the opposite direction before it rockets off the screen. So squash and stretch, the same kind of way. If a rubber ball falls in very fast, you would expect a lot of squash and stretch. If something's very slowly sliding down onto the screen and then there was a lot of squash and stretch, it would just feel odd and out of place. But on its own, timing is a pretty simple premise. Something's either fast or it's slow. If keyframes are close together, it's fast. If keyframes are far apart, it's slow. You also want to be mindful of timing and how it communicates about the mood and attitude of your motion graphics piece. So in other words, if you're doing something that's very slick and sophisticated, you probably want a more subtle kind of vibe, so things might kind of flow in and out slowly and smoothly. If you're doing something fast-paced, a rock or a punk soundtrack, you'd want things zipping in and off the screen very quickly. So be aware of what the timing of your layers say about the mood of your animation and how the timing relates to the way you're using other animation principles like squash and stretch, anticipation, and follow through. In order for the animation to be convincing, the timing has to be correct. So what I want you to do in this comp 4 timing, is just practice setting position keyframes and getting a feel for the timing of a layer. Often beginning animators, if you ask someone 1 second, is 1 second fast? When you're first starting out, 1 second seems like it'd be pretty darn fast. But once you start animating, you realize that 1 second is actually kind of slow. If you do a 1 second fade, that's kind of a slow fade. For example, we'll animate this word timing. So select layer 1 and hit P for position. Click your stopwatch. We'll go to 1 second. So click the go to time. Click the time code and type in 1 second. And we'll move that keyframe to 1 second. Then we'll go back to the beginning of the comp, move our layer off screen, then render a RAM preview. See, 1 second's not all that fast for a layer to fly onto the screen. Let's turn on motion blur. Now let's try 2 seconds. So just slide that keyframe down to 2 seconds. And we'll watch that. That seems almost tediously slow. Let's try 15 frames. There's 15 frames. So that's I would start to call that fast. Let's take a look at 10 frames. So there's a 10 frame move. So what I want you to do is take a good 5-10 minutes and play around with this. Just set a couple of position keyframes, have the layer fly off the screen, have it fly on the screen, and experiment with different timings. Try a 10-second move, then a 1 second move, a 2 second move, a 3 second move, a 15 frame move, and start to develop that feel for how long it takes for something to happen. A good tip when you're animating is before you actually start setting keyframes, visualize the animation in your head and basically count the seconds that it takes. I'll visualize the move happen in my head, and I'll be counting 1 1,000, 2 1,000, you know, and so when you begin to animating, you already have a good idea of how long this is going to take. Is this going to be a 1 second move? Is this going to be a 10 frame move? So go ahead and experiment with the timing of this layer.